and it's just this lovely moment when people are kind of coming together. They're still kind of partly in their own worlds, coming from that space into this new common space, and then finding that and start building this new common space together.
That's what this conference is all about. It's about bringing people together who want to do something positive, in relation to our whole environment. And it's about learning about two-eyed seeing or etowakma. It's about appreciating other people's ideas and taking the time to share.
I have learned that just the company of other people who are not only thinking but feeling about the situation that we're in, and to me that's particularly nature loss, biodiversity loss, as well as climate crisis, and is incredibly painful emotionally. Being able to sort of meet and talk with people and go down to that level pretty quickly, I think is possible here and feels good.
We're here to explore some big issues. We're talking about climate change, we're talking about the nuclear threat, we're talking about other aspects of what we would call the Great Unraveling. So within the context of that discussion, what gives you strength and what gives you joy? So when we go into tomorrow's discussion, which will be a little more sobering discussion because we're going to be talking about some weightier stuff, you go into it with kind of an uplifting discussion tonight.
I honestly thought it was going to be a lot more of a simple conversation, but it went really deep.
I think the reason folks really got in deep and personal, I think that's where we are in the world today.
I feel we're good to establish what we're grateful about to get prepared to talk about what's been wrong and more negative aspects.
Joe was kind of talking about how gratitude is awareness and appreciation, and I think if we talk about that first, we're able to more dive into the later, deeper topics with that kind of hindsight.
Even in that group, we're apologetic. I'm so sorry I'm sounding so negative. But being able to, then realizing it's actually okay. And then with that permission and acceptance, being able to go, and it just...
I think some people think that to do that means that you're denying that there could be something possible on the other side, or that you're being pessimistic, or that you can get stuck there.
We've gathered together in Pugwash, Nova Scotia at the renowned Thinkers Lodge. Nearly 70 years ago, scientists from both sides of the Iron Curtain met here to confront the threat of weapons of mass destruction. This heritage provides us with inspiration and modeling for collective leadership and persistent creativity in the face of daunting challenges.
Civilization and ecosystems as we know them are destabilizing. Potent thresholds have been crossed and others imminent, moving us all into a great unraveling, also sometimes referred to as a polycrisis. Yet there are seeds being sown for a great turning. Together we are pursuing deep and brave conversations, seeking a path to a greater resilience, justice, and sustainability.
We're really in an era where there's so many things going on that hit the critical button.
And that, for him, was overshoot. That we're really consuming more than the earth can provide, and we're disposing more than the earth can really absorb.
2 billion people when you and I were born. Now there's 8 billion.
Everybody's hung up on climate change as sort of a catch-all phrase, but they forget about things like dissolution of so many life forms. We're losing so many species. The lack of awareness that has us load the seas with nitrogen and phosphorus.
50% of the soils on the earth are, the carbon is in the atmosphere because of bad agriculture.
There's billions of people living in the southern hemisphere that are searching out every day just to get enough water or enough food just so they can exist.
We can't tweak this system to make it work. There's no way to make a capitalist system the way that it's functioning right now just to serve the interests of the world. It can't.
It's such a massive issue that if a group of 1,000 people try and take it down, they wouldn't be able, because it's just pure money and power.
If you go ahead with extracting plutonium, you are creating a worsening nuclear weapons proliferation risk. In the end, reality will strike and it will not be pretty at all.
Nothing in my lifetime could do anything to reverse it, but the problem is, we only have my lifetime.
I mean, I think we're still protecting ourselves from the reality of what's coming. And that includes me often, you know.
And the consequences we'll have to pay, and we know that. If we can't be afraid of it, then we're not really human, are we?
Do you feel like you have anyone in your life that does sort of comprehend it? Or do you feel like you're alone in it?
What I'm trying to say, maybe that's the spirits that are sitting next to me, whispering in my ear. Tell them about the encounters of the Europeans. What happened to your people? This is what they're saying, and how do I say that without being offensive to anybody? Part of that is loss of culture, dignity, respect, integrity. But the endurance of our people, the Mi'kmaq, the endurance that they took over many centuries, many generations. They survived. They tried to take our language, but we still speak it. They cut our hair, but it still grows. They tried to take away our culture, but still Mi'kmaq.
Here at the Thinkers Lodge as in the capacity of Elder Joe Michael's helper. I think by recognizing an Indigenous worldview and realize that our relationship with the land and the resources that lie within, at least those things we treat as resources, deserves a reevaluation, and not just through each individual adopting a different type of worldview, but through working on rehabilitating, resolving the infractions committed against Indigenous peoples.
This is why I wanted to emphasize a lot today on culture, especially the two I see. How do you perceive, how do you see different cultures? Not just an individual, but a nation.
At Waptimuk, it literally translates. You're looking at everything from another perspective. And for us, it's a very simple concept because everybody has two eyes. The more perspectives we have, do we not have a chance? Do we not have a better chance to meet whatever challenges nature will throw at us? But in our case, we say this is an Aboriginal Mi'kmaq perspective, and realizing, of course, that everything that we do, everything that sustains us, is from nature.
I often think about the teachings from our elders, and our elders are so knowledgeable in simple terms, simple words. My passion was for the youth, and I went to an elder, a female elder, a well-respected elder, and I had a cup of tea with her, and I told her right up front, I said, how come our youth, I can't talk to them. I cannot communicate with them. And the elderly woman just simply said, I have to change. I have to change my way of thinking. I have to change my way of how to explain stuff. And you have to listen to those youth. We must work hand in hand. But we must engage the youth of today.
If people like yourselves wonder what there is to do, I really feel like we need mentors.
I've noticed in the past few years a growing understanding, at least among a fairly sizable proportion of students who don't really believe in the system anymore. When I ask my students, what can be done about environmental challenges, 10, 15 years ago, it was almost very heavy emphasis on the individual changes. And now there's much more, much larger percentage of students go straight to the systemic issues and see this as a problem.
We were a generation that grew up where, the world was, our oyster. We could do anything, right? And now we've got this youth generation that's exponentially larger, that has really known nothing but war and poverty. Yeah. And it's just fighting. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest issues with fighting global warming is the really messy relationship that younger people have with older people. They get mad at us when we act like it's hopeless, and then when we don't act like it's hopeless, they call us dumb because it's hopeless.
We want Joe to be there with all the youth. And we're going to talk about how it's important that everybody has enough opening to listen without sort of prejudicing conversation on what somebody thinks.
I'll be looking after the process. I'll be helping. But I don't want nobody to interfere when the person has the evil way. The proper teaching is for us to build a good relationship and a good foundation of hearing the voice of the young people.
I have this one side of me that wants to try so hard to fight against it, to work my life and to just push on and make change. And there's that other voice which has been stronger and stronger as I've been getting older that says there's nothing we can do about it.
I have a younger sister. I'm young myself, but I have a younger sister who's almost 10 years younger than me. So I worry for myself as well as her.
Thinking of Elder Joe's teachings of to Lyceum and how in many ways the cultures and societies that we exist in on an everyday basis do not prioritize relationships. We're taught to see ourselves as individuals first, and then the rest of the world comes from that.
I definitely have a strong urge to raise a family, but it's hard for me to justify bringing more a human that I care so deeply about into this world, because I already feel so vulnerable. It would seem silly for me to lose even more.
What can we do to help these young people that are caught up into this state of hopelessness? What can we do to alleviate that on them? Yes, there's a lot of uncertainties. But those uncertainties, we could survive those uncertainties. But we can only do it together. Individually, you're going to have difficulty. But collectively we can.
We're in the U curve. We're going to hit the bottom, but then we're going to come out the other side. Okay, well, what's the future? Where are the seeds being planted? What's practical that can actually be sustained? When there's less energy input, less global supply chains, whatever it is,
what's it gonna look like?
I was thinking during the conference, we have a polycrisis. We have all of these different interconnected things that are difficult to solve. So it would make sense that this kind of mirror of solutions and ways that we deal with it are also multifaceted and complicated and kind of find their way to fill in these gaps.
You don't move a whole population. You don't need 100% of the people to go, oh, yeah.
51%.
Yeah, you need like 20% of the population. 1 in 5 will shift it. Because the early majority will see what's happening and go, oh, yeah, maybe I should be part of that. But they need to see that critical mass, right? And to the extent that the thinkers are the innovators at that leading edge of that curve, innovators' role are to engage the early adopters.
Future generations, if there is a livable world for them, will look back at the epical transition we are making to a life-sustaining society, and they may well call this the time of the great turning. Joanna Macy.
In Nova Scotia, we get it. The floods told us, the fires that never witnessed before told us. Why is it so important now? Because now you see it, now you feel it, now you're suffering it. And you might be next, or I might be next, and so on. And the final question, of course, is, now what?
I think that we're so eager to drive people to action that we end up kind of talking to them, at them, instead of just sharing our story and giving a space for them to tell their stories.
The challenge is such that I think it requires personal connections as the foundation and the context for these discussions. So if we're going to talk about climate change, we're going to talk about the unraveling, it has to happen within the context of a trusting relationship.
While we need to have these personal conversations with people that trust us, we need policy change.
We're being too nice, and we all want to be nice, and we want to be communal and collaborative, and that's all good. But we also need to confront. You need the pointy end of the spear, and you need the people who have access to government. It's probably not going to be the same group of people.
I think that the communicating of the fact that we're exceeding our ecological boundaries and climate and the temperature rise, it's not so difficult because it's already happening. What makes it difficult is that there is a competing narrative driven by what you just mentioned, this corporate culture, that if we address the crisis, they're going to lose something.
When you have a government that says we're going to do the right thing, and we're going to, address climate change, and we're going to do all of these good things, and at the same time they're approving new fossil fuel projects, that's almost like it destroys the language that you can even have to talk about this. And it's one of the reasons I think we need to make action language. We need visual language. We need music and theater and art language.
With people grieving and having, quieter, kind of more soft routes versus these louder routes, people throwing mashed potatoes on paintings at the Louvre can be shocking to people. I've had conversations about that, or, setting things on fire, chaining themselves to trees, being loud has its place. The only way that I can get my voice out is to protest through art.
I graduated from Pugwash District High. It's a pretty small school. We had a population of like not even 200 people. So the petition itself was brought to my attention by Robert Cervelli. He was like, this is a really cool project that someone else did. And he was like, if you want to take this on board, that would be great.
I was invited to attend and participate in the ceremony to declare Pugwash Regional High School a nuclear weapons-free zone.
And certainly the majority of you have heard Pugwash referred to as the place of peace.
I started kind of like playing videos for the school over our announcements and talking to people. And so then we were like, let's just do a petition.
You wonder, well, I don't see any nuclear weapons above my head, but we do know that nuclear weapons are in our world. And we also know right now that our world is very volatile.
Sometimes it's hard to see how, like, I'm looking for the word, like, unstable the world is sometimes, and like how quickly something can go really bad, and just like how much like fighting and hate is out there. And so like having been a part of a project that really like emphasized peace and emphasized wanting stability and like equality for everyone, equity for everyone, it has meant so much more to me now than it ever did. I really do hope that our school is able to set an example moving forward for other schools in trying to like make a more collective movement of young people, because young people are really who have led like social movements throughout history. And I hope that we can educate people and yeah, like my goal is to see like the government maybe declare nuclear weapon free. We'll see.
One of the big things that's come out for me over these past few days is this feeling of simultaneously being scared and overwhelmed and frustrated, but at the same time feeling optimistic and hopeful. And so this like almost duality that seems to be happening, and that's because I think the problems that we're dealing with are human created, and yet the solutions are going to be oven by humans.
Everybody talks about food security or food sovereignty. We can somehow supplement our source of life food-wise in whatever land we may have. Not only we're going to feel that we're going to have at least some food to sustain us, but most importantly, I think it will bring back what's been missing for a long period of time, and that's relationships.
I think that food systems inherently have to be human scale and community-based. That makes them responsive, adaptive, and resilient, but also accountable and transparent, and that's where camaraderie, neighborliness, kinship, and ubiquity come from. And I genuinely believe that the future has to be a local food future, and I believe that we have all the tools to do that already. It's just a matter of mobilizing and sharing stories and normalizing this new normal.
So one of my biggest things I always come back to, though, is it's conservation. If we are to have the seeds for the future to return for whatever humans make it through this great unraveling, but without 50% of the landscape protected in most places on Earth, we're kind of, I don't know, like the next round of humanity won't stand a chance either. It will just be the cockroaches and the insects.
It's quite convenient to live in a world where labor is shared equitably and that there are shared outcomes and accountability at a human scale.
It's going to be technology that saves our ass, guys.
Is technology actually going to fix a predicament, or will it, as somebody else pointed out, help modulate the glide path of the plane?
I think we need to harness technology at the human scale, but I'm totally on board on team technology. I just also think that this thing stuck underneath our sternum is what also has to be highly evoked.
There is a great need of a transformative change. And that transformative change, we have science that can help us. But science alone cannot do it, because science is being manipulated by greed. Because they think this is an object, and anything that translates into that, I have a right to it. But when it comes to nature, we have no rights. Nature has rights. Humans have responsibilities.
Mi'kmaq grandmother, Doreen Bernard, has always been rather clear that she prefers us to call ourselves protectors or defenders than protesters. And actually, I've come to think that that's a pretty good point. You know, that what we're doing mostly is actually to protect and to defend. In the course of doing that, we are protesting the way things are being done.
My experience of spirituality is quite tied to nature, and just my understanding or my thought that we are nature. You don't need to believe in like a higher power, but to just look out at the world and see these beautiful bursting purple flowers grow and think like, wow, the energy and life that created these flowers, that's so powerful. And it's something larger than myself and ourselves. And to just appreciate that, love it.
Our natural world is wonderful medicine. I would like to think, can you determine the level of stress you currently have? And you take this level of stress you have and go into nature. How much of it would disappear?
I was watching the rain falling on the water, and each raindrop created ripples, which emanated out and joining with other ripples. And it was a beautiful pattern. And what all of us do creates those ripples.
Yeah, I'm wrestling with how to talk about that balance between, an honest assessment of the situation with thinking about where there are positive possibilities.
There are just an enormous amount of potential solutions that already exist, but we're just so comfortable still in the rapacious lifestyle that we live in.
Life itself is governed by love and compassion. And with love and compassion, if you truly and honestly believe in it, it will prevail. And when I talk about being a warrior, it's not a warrior that, can take up arms, no. Our definition for a warrior, for example, is which translates in English, one that will bring everything back to balance.